Welcome to Bicycle Retail Radio, the bicycle industry podcast that brings retailers, vendors, advocates, and thought leaders to the mic for honest discussions about the latest issues facing retailers while taking an in-depth look at the person within the profession.
Welcome, listeners. Thanks for being back with us. Welcome to the Flex. Today is our Retail Design Flex. I'm joined here by Brian Hawkins from Fixture Lab. Brian, always great to see you.
Twice as good to see you.
We love our Retail Design Flex. It's our ongoing podcast feature focused specifically on store design, remodeling, and merchandising. And it's produced in partnership with NBDA Association member Fixture Lab. And I love this because we're doing good work. I always hear from retailers and from our listeners, hey, I heard that podcast. It was great. Thanks so much for that. I made some little changes. I changed my wall coloring. I did something to my ceiling. I moved
I painted my ceiling. I moved that fixture over. I did something. Yep.
It's true, right? I mean, you're hearing it too, Brian, right? Like it's catching on. Like
yeah. I don't want to say that we're a really, really, really big deal, but
yeah, I don't know. Let's just leave that there. So if you have not heard of Fixture Lab and Brian Hawkins has been in bike shop design and merchandising for years. They don't just work with bike shops, bicycle retailers. They also work with other retailers. Could be cycling, running, fly fishing, outdoor sports, you name it.
Boats.
Yeah.
Water sports.
Why not? It's fun. Fixture Lab, Brian creates cutting edge. I had to think about that for a minute. Cutting edge. I wanted to say like totally radical, but I went with cutting edge. Retail spaces that make your competition green with envy. I mean, we're talking about stuff people notice and they talk about and they tell their friends and they end up buying more because they feel relaxed, inspired, comfortable. I mean, there's so many things that go into it. Brian.
At the end of the day, everything we're talking about just makes you more money and makes you happier because you're proud of what you built.
It's so true. And there's so much. I'm going off script here, Brian.
My God.
We have a new grocery store in my neighborhood. It went into an existing grocery store was. So it took over the space. So they had their big grand opening and they were giving away free food. So of course I got dressed up and I went up there and
you got dressed up?
That's not crazy. And little do you know. The way that they designed the way they decided to merchandise the new store, like they left some of the things like the milk and the eggs in the same spot as the other store, but like changed the colors of the walls. And it was so nice to like know where things were, but also nice to see things fresh and pop. And I was thinking of you and I was like, so much has gone into this. There's so much research that goes into this. So we can't do it alone. We need people that this is like your business. You get this. You know,
right.
You're the expert.
Right. And, conversely, is that the right usage of that? Like, if you wanted me to run a bike shop, no way. It's too hard.
Right, that's why we need to lean on people. So,
oh my gosh, yes. I have such respect for people running successful shops, running and doing cool things.
It's big.
And
it's big.
We can't all know everything.
So the cool thing
lean on
about
us.
Our Retail Design Flex is that Brian answers your questions. So we get questions from people all the time, and Brian works with retailers on a continual basis. And we go through and we say, okay, what can we talk about on the Retail Design Flex that's gonna really help a lot of people and probably is a common issue. So I'm really excited about today's episode. But listen, if you have a question that you want us to answer, if you have maybe a problem area in the store, something that you just can't get your head around, send us a photo, send us a video, reach out to us, and we will happily answer your question on the Flex. Right, Brian? anything, right?
You betcha. In fact, I made a short list of questions that people might ask because
Oh,
it's the kind of thing they ask.
I-
This isn't that wild, really. How about what the heck is the best color for a bathroom? It's a good question, right?
Mhm.
It's Saturday and there are so many customers around my service area that no one can get around the shop. What do I do?
I hear that one a lot.
Aren't huge windows perfect for a retail store?
I
Are
know.
they?
I don't know. The way you're looking, I'm not quite sure.
Are they?
So listeners, if you're just listening to us in the car or on your run or on your ride, I'd also urge you to check out our YouTube channel when you get home, because you can watch today's episode. Brian always shares a lot of photos. There's a lot of great things. Just you can just see us. Our facial expressions are great. So when you get home, definitely check out the YouTube channel. But if you want us to answer those questions, if you want to know what the best color for your bathroom is, why people are getting trapped in one area of the store, and we need to, how can we help fix that? What remedies are out there? Go ahead, design@nbda.com. That comes right to Brian and I, and we'll answer those.
Heck yeah.
Brian, can I just ask you about the Retailer Summit? So it was great to have you at the MBDA Retailer Summit.
So awesome.
Yeah, so you were giving a presentation for our attendees in one of the breakout sessions. And I mean, the room was jam-packed. It was great. I heard a lot of positive response. How was it for you?
I thought it was really, really great. And I think you didn't tell me you were going to ask me this, but um, I thought it was really cool to have both sides of the fence, like suppliers and retailers in the same room, working on the same problems and trying to work together. Because one of the things that we heard over and over again during the summit was this last year was super freaking challenging for everybody.
Mhm.
Everybody. And we got to stick together and we gotta work things out. And it was really good to hear some positive movement from brands and retailers, like looking forward, like there's light at the end of this tunnel that was so dark this last year for most people. So I just felt like that was awesome. And I've already got ideas for next year for presentations. We can't leak now because we don't know for sure, but I'm excited about it. It's gonna be cool.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the retailers and the suppliers together, because I was well, you had a couple sessions and I was in one of your sessions. And as you were presenting your tips to the audience, I actually looked around and I was like, okay, who's in the room? And we see
Mhm.
like QBP in the room. And then I see a retailer in a room. And then I see an e-bike company in the room. And the questions weren't just coming from retailers, they were coming from suppliers too, which made me think, okay, maybe some of our suppliers and partners are going to go back to their sales reps, are going to go back to their team and say, hey, let's help retailers. Here's some great stuff we learned. So I thought it was just great that everyone in the room was excited for the information, not just the retailers.
The same thing struck me because I was standing up front presenting information and I'm totally expecting 100% retailers in the room because that's kind of the way my information was geared. But it was awesome to see other people from brands that are helping these retailers or supplying their own product, because that's just going to help everybody work together better to create a better solution in the end. So it's perfect.
We all get better. So listeners, a couple days after the summit, I'm casually drinking my coffee and the inbox pops up, and I see a message from Brian Hawkins. So I'm extremely excited to open up the email. Not sure what it's going to contain. You never know with Brian. And it reads something like, hey, I have this great idea for our next podcast. And it went on to talk about a retailer you actually met at the summit, and who's working with you to, I think, specifically help with the floor planning. And you were like, I think it would be this great idea to cover how to look at a new space, or, how to have fresh eyes on a new space. So I thought we would do that today, evaluating new retail space plans, something like that. Right, Brian?
Yes, indeed. I just thought it was a nice, like this could go pretty quick, but it's a nice bite-sized chunk, and it is, I think, super valuable because I see this kind of information coming through so often. Like in the early stages of looking for a new store, people are looking at empty spaces, they're looking at floor plans from a developer or from a landlord or a real estate person, and they're trying to evaluate, like, is this going to work for us? Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? What should I ask for? That kind of stuff. So we're going to dig into that with real examples.
Yeah. I mean, now my brain's like, do we pick a place based on location, like busy road, or like the inside of the store, or does it have to be a combination of both? Like there's
Well,
so
it's got to be a combination of both. I don't, like the physical location of the business within the city is a bigger topic than we have time
Mhm.
for today, but it's a big deal. I
You have
mean,
thoughts on that one too, Brian?
sure. I mean, I have thoughts on everything, whether I should or not. So, we can
All
talk
right.
about anything.
So here's what we're talking about. So either we're opening a new store and we've got some potential places and we're gonna think about what we could do with the interior. But then also potentially we already have our store. It's been set up, it's kind of working, but maybe we want to have some fresh eyes on it. Right? Is that our plan?
Yeah, less the latter than the former, but let's just dig in. You'll see.
Okay, all right.
You're going to see. It's going to be great.
Okay.
All right. Can you see this?
Evaluating new retail space plans.
Bada bing, bada boom. Okay. I got to click on this. I always forget to click on that. And I've got exciting news for you, Heather. This is a first for our podcast.
Oh no.
It's going to be awesome. Everybody's going to be talking about this. It's the Retail Design Flex Challenge. You ready?
I am so ready.
Okay, we've got to somehow incorporate these 3 words into our conversation organically today.
And this, I think we have to check. All right, I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay, your 3 words are nauseating,
Oh no.
canoodle.
I don't even know what that means. I'm in a canoodle. Did I win?
Well, that was a nice try. And widdershins.
Nauseating, canoodle, and widdershins.
Okay, so make a note of those because we've got to use those. It can be you or I, but we've got to build it in. Or if we don't use all of these words inside what we're talking about today, then Heather's going to buy every retailer in NBDA lunch.
All right, and challenge to our listeners today, in your day, use these 3 words too.
There you go. Okay, so now I expected that you knew what nauseating and canoodle meant, but I didn't think you'd know what widdershins was because when I looked up fun words, I didn't know what it was. So here we go. Widdershins is an adverb and it describes left-handed, wrong, or contrary direction, as in being.
All right, okay, left-handed.
As in being counterclockwise, as in being contrary to what you're expecting.
Well,
So how fun is that? We're going to use this word in actual practice today. And you have to help me because I'll be thinking about other things and then we've got to weave it in.
Brian, one more question. Canoodle, does that mean I'm just confused?
No, a canoodle is, at least my feeling, I'm like, you're making me nervous now, but I think canoodle is you canoodle with someone, like you get together and you noodle something, you think about it.
Oh,
You gang up and you,
canoodle.
right. So I might get together with the dealer, the retailer that we have on the screen here and canoodle ways to make a better store.
This is my most favorite word right now. All right, okay. This is
Okay.
exciting. So challenge accepted, Brian. And if we fail, I will buy lunch for every retailer listening.
Okay. Next thing before we get into it is I wanted to reiterate that the Retailer Protection Program is engaged. It's a mystery who sent me the things that we're about to look at, but they're real things.
Yeah, and for our listeners who don't know about the Retailer Protection Program, this has been going on for over a year now. It's a special program that Brian and I put retailers in who need protection.
Right. Because we want you to feel free to share and ask questions, and we don't want you to feel weird about sharing stuff that other people are going to see.
And we do canoodle with these retailers.
Oh, yes. Way to go. All right. Here's the way we're going to do this. I'm going to show some pictures. I'm going to show some floor plans. I'm going to identify some spots, as we've done before in other episodes. I'm going to identify some spots, but I also want you, Heather, to tell me what you're seeing in these things. So this is a very typical picture of an empty space that this retailer is considering moving into. What do you see, Heather?
Well, if I was the retailer, I'd be like, probably pretty excited about this space. It seems to be what appears to be a busy strip mall. There's
Mhm.
nice windows, so you could put some
Mhm.
nice window displays. It looks like an open floor plan, so you can do a lot with it. I'm
Yep.
not loving the drop ceilings. I'm feeling a little bit of potential of security issues with all the glass. And the floor is nauseating. Um,
Yes. We're barely into it. You've
um,
got to save Widdershins for later, just so
I
people
will.
keep listening.
I promise. No, that's my original thought,
Okay, great. Well, you're right on it with what I'm seeing in here. Okay. One thing that I'm looking at is there's there's like two tiny little light fixtures. I don't know how they use these in the previous store, but if you're going to be lighting the store properly, as we've talked about in previous episodes, this is not going to be adequate for spotlighting, of course, because it can't get to everything in the store. So that means that something's going to need to be done lighting wise, which means electrical. And when it's electrical and it's a drop ceiling, that means one thing you should definitely do is poke your head above these tiles. Get a ladder and poke your head up there to see what you're up against. Because sometimes most of the time it's perfect. Like a drop ceiling is just perfect to mount lights to and run electrical stuff across because it's easy to work with. Sometimes though, it's a mess and it can become a real challenge. And the name of the game at this stage is to prevent there from being any surprises later on down the road. So look at that. What do you think I'm circling there?
I don't know. Does it look like the drop ceilings are maybe a little bubbled or something? Like,
Yes,
wow, I'm on it today, Brian.
you're like so on it. What I'm seeing, and this may not be anything at all to worry about, but since we're looking at the picture, the ceiling tiles do look a little warped, little bent, which means water, usually. Maybe, maybe there was a water issue a million years ago and everything's fine now, but it's worth looking at, again, poking your head above the ceiling, touching the tiles to make sure that there isn't actually water moisture somehow happening right now, because you certainly don't want to have to address that ceiling after you're open. This is the nauseating floor down here. The things that I'm seeing there indicate to me that you're not going to be able to clean this floor and make it look good.
It looks like it's gonna have to come out.
Yeah, it'll have to come out, or it'll have to be covered somehow. So when I look at this, I automatically think, okay, floor coverings, that's part of our budget, which isn't a big deal because this floor looks like it's in great condition, except for the tiles themselves aren't pretty. And you were right on it. I circled the windows.
Oh, okay.
Two reasons. One is there's a lot of glass across the front of the store. And that means, maybe there's more than two, but one thing that presents is an issue for security. As we've talked about before, security in a space like this. So, put on the hat of a thief you could, if you see valuable things in here, you could break these windows and get out quickly, or you could back a truck into the windows and really compromise things quickly and get out quickly, unless there's something like bollards or plants or bushes or things like that out front. So when I see this, I think automatically security gates. So security gates aren't a nothing. Like you have to budget for those. So think about that. Another thing is light. The windows are great at letting in some light, but they also backlight things that you want to put against the windows. So that's something to think about. And the last thing is merchandising. Anywhere where there's glass like this, it's a little bit more challenging to put merchandise because you can't screw into the wall. You can't just put slat wall on it. You don't want to put grid wall over your windows because that defeats the purpose. So it just presents some potential problems, but if you do it the right way, it can be an awesome thing. Speaking of nauseating.
Yeah. Is that the back area? Is that like the
Mhm.
storage space?
We'll see. I'll show you the floor plan here in a sec,
I'm
and so
pretty
we
good
can,
at seeing potential and getting excited about things, but I don't know about this place,
yeah,
Brian.
I almost didn't even include this because it's like such a duh. It's like, of course, when I look at that, it raises some red flags. Like the ceiling tiles are buckled. And they're doing it here. They're doing it a little bit out front, which I don't know. It just worries me. Okay. Then we've got this stuff back here, which I did a close up of.
Now, is this stuff, I mean, this is like building maintenance stuff though, right? This shouldn't be like, if I was coming into this space, this would be something I would ask the landlord about, right?
Oh, that's a perfect question. Because yes, I mean, for sure you want to address this, but the landlord's not always automatically going to do anything about this.
Mm.
I was just in another store where the condition of the store is a lot like this kind of stuff throughout the whole store. And the landlord's like, take it or leave it. This is my space, the way I'm going to give it to you for the price that I'm giving it to you. And you get to deal with how to clean it up.
Gotcha.
I mean, they can do that. And you just want to make sure that if you're expecting for the landlord to clean this up, he's expecting you to clean this up. You don't want that. You don't want to be miscommunicating like that. And this one's really worrisome to me because you can see black. And it looks like mold and it's coming down from the ceiling and it's just a red flag. Okay, we'll get away from the nastiness.
Oh, so this is at the windows looking back now?
Uh-huh, exactly.
All right.
What do you see?
I just love it less. It looks like a cave. It looks, I don't know, dark and
Nice. Yeah, more reason why. And some of their lights are turned off, so it's not, you know, the lighting isn't everything that it could be, even though even though there are some lights. But you can tell it's gonna need to be lit more. This is more evidence that you're gonna need to address the floor. I circled the light here because these are clearly fluorescent fixtures. Sometimes fluorescent fixtures are a problem because they've been around for a long, long time and half of them work, half of them don't. And then you get into ballast issues and blah, blah, blah. And you can't make them match color wise. And then before you know it, you're replacing all of them with retrofit LED panels or something else. So when I see fluorescent fixtures, I just automatically start thinking, okay, we're going to have to replace fixtures in this store if we're going to effectively light the whole thing. And then of course we can see the limited spotlighting in there. Those little things on the back wall, what am I circling?
are those the breaker panels back
Yep.
there?
Man, you're so good.
I
The only reason I'm circling that is because it's inside the retail space
yeah.
and we can't move those. I mean, you could maybe, but it's a pain in the butt to move those and expensive. So you want to make sure that whatever you've got planned for that area of the store is going to be okay with not being able to be touched. And according to code, you need some clearance around that kind of stuff so that you can't put shelves right in front of it. So you
Mhm.
just got to make sure that that works with what you're planning. Next thing, this is the floor plan as given by the landlord for the space that we were just looking at.
Okay.
Anything jump out at you?
I'm looking. Yeah, what is that?
Okay, so, and you can't know this from what you see here,
A
but
wall?
if the whole space that we're looking at, and it continues on to the right, was one contiguous space. Now they're dividing it into smaller spaces by putting in this wall right here, the vertical one,
Mhm.
and closing off the doors right here. So this is the new space, and the landlord's offering to build or to keep this wall, I guess is the way I should put it.
Okay.
Because right now, the back room for the store that's over here is this area here. And he's offering to just leave this wall here, which creates a natural back room for the store and a natural front of the room for the store.
Mhm. I see it.
Okay. The nauseating corner is right
Yep.
here.
And I see the breakers on the wall up above there, so
Uh-huh.
they would stay in. Yeah, okay.
Here's another thing that I saw when we first started looking at this, the positioning of the door.
I don't think
Um,
you it would in the middle like be better, Brian? Is that what you're
at least not by the wall.
okay?
We'll talk about this more soon, but basically having the door right by the left-hand wall ruins what you can do on this wall to some degree with merchandise
Hmm.
or with a cash wrap or with many other things. Because you're coming in, you just can't put anything on that wall unless it's flat to the wall. So it's just a limitation. I mean, you could just, and it might beg the question, like, Mr. Landlord, if I decide to move ahead with this, is there any problem with taking this door and moving it more towards the middle? So that I can better utilize the space on this wall? Because remember, all of this front is glass. So it might be easy to move around. So
Hmm.
check on that. Okay, so if we assume that the back room is going to be defined by this wall that already exists, it's kind of natural, right?
Yeah.
Because we don't have to do any construction that way. So my thought here is red flag that they didn't know how big of a back room you needed when they built that wall because it wasn't at all intended for you. So we don't know that it's the right size for a bike shop.
Hmm. Is it too small?
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It should be, what should it be? What is the,
Well, okay, so if we combine both of the spaces, so we talk about a whole footprint inside this space, it's 2,564 square feet. Okay, and where I start with for a back room or for areas that are not accessible by customers, I start at 40% usually as a good size that we have found by trial and error over the years. When we build that much room in, we're able to make things work really well.
and Brian, can we just clarify what's in the back room? Is that your service center or is that just storage?
Well, there's a blurry line on the service center part because you'll see in a sec that there's some service that happens in front of that wall in this case, and some that would happen behind it.
Right,
But
right.
it's certainly boxes, shelves of products, bikes that you don't want to be seen, like repair bikes waiting to be repaired, or waiting to be picked up, or built bikes that you don't want on the floor, or merchandise that's just come in, like the receiving area, employee bathroom, break room, that kind of stuff, office.
I understand.
So
Okay.
that's what we're talking about back room. So in this, there's no hard rules on this. It's not like breaking the law here, but it is a red flag to see that if the back room is 740 square feet, it falls well short of 40%, and it doesn't even come up to 30% of the whole footprint of the space,
Hmm.
which also can be mitigated if you have some great storage that's very nearby. This size store almost always pretty much needs a storage space of some sort. A lot of places are lucky and they're blessed to have a basement or an attic or something like that where they can store boxes and stuff like that. If this is the only floor and you've got this much room and a small back room, just start to plan on having some extra space, whether that's a container, a storage unit, something, somebody's garage, whatever.
So if you were given this floor plan from a potential, from a potential building owner, would you suggest that you get a meeting with them and maybe canoodle a different plan for back storage space?
Yes. Well, I mean, you may decide in your specific case that this isn't going to be a big deal because you kind of know what's going to go in the back room and you know you have room for it. It's just worth looking at. It's just worth thinking about and not just assuming that because there's already a back room that it's going to be the right size and it's going to take care of you well.
Gotcha.
Okay.
All right.
Here is the person who shall remain nameless. Here's their drawing of the way that they were thinking about filling in the space. And this is, I'm not critiquing this at all. This is great. This is good thinking. It's a good plan. Critical elements are here. Some are not. So we've got a little area here where there's going to be some service done on bikes with a counter that's a little L-shaped counter in front of that. Over on the right-hand wall, we have special display that holds, you know, it's like bikes on either end, and then there's a platform in the middle to put a featured bike, or maybe for someone to ride a bike on a trainer or something. There's bikes in the middle, there's bikes up front. And then there's, you know, basically he's drawing here that there's room to get around the store, if not ride a bike around that circle on a rainy day inside that space. You see any
Wow.
red flags here?
I don't know. My first thing that's what I was looking at, the 12 feet for the service. It just seems like a little, I feel like we do too much service. It just feels very cramped and not a big enough space.
You're on it. The thing that I'm going to say here is one of the most common problems that I see all the time when we get a hand-drawn plan like this is the scale is goofed up.
Mhm.
And this one is by no means the worst that I've seen. I mean, this is not bad at all, but sometimes people will draw the space and they get the shape. Maybe they get the shape right, maybe they get it wrong, but then they start drawing in bikes and counters and stuff, and they're all way too small. They're always too small because you're trying to fit more in the space. But we know that you can't really change what needs to happen within that area if you're going to have a bike on a stand and you're going to be helping customers. So it's going to be the size it's going to be, and this looks like it's not drawn to scale. So that's the red flag there. I'm looking at the exact same thing in the middle of the store. Those slash marks look suspiciously like they're too small to be real.
Mhm.
You know, so you might in your mind be planning on a whole bunch more product on the floor than you can actually fit because reality. And then we've got this space here again where the door opens up by the wall. There's no cash wrap. There's no sales counter drawn into this plan. And retailer was thinking about putting a cash wrap, you know, on this wall.
Mm.
And so we looked at that, and then I showed him what that would look like. And it's a non-starter because you walk in the front door into the side of a counter.
And Brian, what about all the done repair bikes? Is that going back where it says boxes? Like, okay, all right.
Yep. Yeah, all that kind of stuff. He's also drawn an office back here, which is great.
His office looks bigger than the repair
Right.
service area though. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not,
When it comes to bikes too, it's worth looking at the shape of things. Like a long, skinny room is usually tough.
Mhm.
A curved room is really tough with bikes because you're dealing with big clunky boxes a lot of the time, or at least, 6 foot long product a lot of the time. So you got to be careful if it starts to get narrow this way because it's going to limit the way that you can utilize the space within that room. Okay, so
Wow.
this is the way that when we put the real scale to things, this is not Withershins from the way that he drew it.
I was gonna say, can I use Wittershins here because it's on the left side of the screen and it's left-handed?
That's a tough one to use. This is the way the actual scale, this is the way things look. So these bikes are scaled, these counters are scaled. The product on the wall is a good indication of what's going to happen if you're using slat wall or the fixtures that we make or specialized fixtures or whatever. This is a counter that accommodates what he's talking about. This is a bike repair stand in like a tool box kind of things with drawers against the wall.
Yeah.
I also plugged in some boxes that are actual size for today's bikes that an electric bike shop would have. And they're big. And you can start to see where if the room is too narrow, then you're in danger of not being able to slide this box far enough out to get it off the shelf comfortably. So
I
that's
mean,
what I mean.
I
That's
don't
what I mean about
hate it,
the
Brian.
narrowness of the room making the difference.
I don't hate it. I don't know if I love it. I don't know if I love the single door. And I mean, do I get to vote or?
I don't know who's going to stop you from voting. No, I don't think, and this is super early. Like this is just the first blush at, this is like taking his initial sketches and throwing things on the floor just to make sure that we're not crazy in terms of space utilization. And I would say that it's not crazy. It's not off the deep end.
It's
It
not
doesn't
great.
have a whole lot of product. We've only got, I don't know what the count is, probably 25
Yeah, I was thinking like,
bikes.
what do we do when we start getting busy and we want, like, I don't know. I was just thinking about what about future growth? Like, I don't know. So that's
Okay,
it.
so this is the two next to each other. What you're saying is a perfect thing to be thinking about. Like, if we look at this thing all scaled up and we can see what the space around things is actually like, do we have enough room for the product on the floor? Do we have room for product to grow on the floor? And can we re-merchandise and can we change things around and can we adapt to new conditions that we don't see coming?
Mhm.
So you can see how much smaller his hand-drawn version is than reality. And it's just dangerous because if you leave this here, then that makes it look like you have twice as much room for these bikes in the middle, and you really don't.
I honestly think, Brian, anyone who's considering opening any store when you're looking at a space should work with you to do something like this.
I
Because
think everybody in every retail business should work with us.
I'm just gonna say it. I'm just gonna say it.
I couldn't agree more. Okay, I've got another example. This is a different store. This is also real. And this is the drawing that I got, squiggles and all, from the retailer.
What a cool drawing, though. I think this person could be like a comic or something. I think this person, like, I really,
Oh, right?
yeah, it's really cool.
Like it's got some character.
It does.
Okay, so we've got a long, skinny room. Again, skinny room hazard. And we're not even going to go into the way this is organized because that is to be determined. But there was one thing that stood out immediately to me, and that was that he was thinking this is a repair station here with the bikes on it. And then he wanted to put chairs along here so that if customers came in, that they could sit and talk with the people working on the bikes.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so let's
Witter shins. I'm sorry. Witter. Let me just use that one on that one.
That is winter shins.
Can we
compared
canoodle
to-
on this?
I don't think we need to canoe. Like I threw in chairs, and these are not the chairs that he's picturing in his head, but they are real chairs and they're not huge. But you can see that there is no room for what we're talking about here, and no one in their right mind would ever want to sit in these chairs with their knees touching the bikes that are being worked on.
Mhm.
Even if you took the bike off of this side of the stand, you're right there in someone's business. So looking at this and the scaling issues that are there, it just pays to have things scaled from
Yes.
the
100%.
get-go.
100%.
Here's another drawing. Different room.
Okay.
Okay. So now the size of the toilet should be a clue that what's being depicted here is a triangular shaped table with chairs around it.
Mm.
Triangular shaped table with chairs around it. And then there's a few bikes out there. And then there's a divider here to make this essentially into back room, I think.
All right.
So again, we've got a scaling issue. And in this case, we have a shape issue because when measured, the space as actually this shape, it's not a square. It looks square when you're standing in it, but it's not. It's a little bit more long and rectangular. And it's small.
Mhm.
To the point where you put bikes on the outside wall, you put bikes in the middle, even a conservative, even with the wheel up style display. So it saves some floor space. This
Okay.
is already like super tight. We've all been in stores where this happens, where this is what's going on there, but it's not optimal. It's not a great place to start.
The drawing looks so open and airy.
Right? And I put in a table, small table with 3 chairs. And you can see that there's like no way you're getting, you could put a couple tables and some chairs and eliminate all the product in the room, and then you'd be fine. But you wouldn't have any product in the room then.
Mhm.
So it's just a hazard of drawing things out of scale and looking at the space a little bit the wrong way in the beginning of things. So what do we do about this, Heather?
Well, I think everyone needs to work with Brian Hawkins.
Well, okay, that's a really great idea. But I have a little solution.
Oh, interesting. Okay, you actually
About a million
actually
years ago,
wanna-
I created this.
you actually want to talk about a solution. Okay, so
I know, I'm sorry.
but I've seen this like grid paper before that'll help us draw things to scale.
So what I've got that I will send to you, Heather, so that you can provide it to whoever wants it, is a PDF with these 2 pages in it. So if either one of these retailers that we were just talking about took this and then you use the squares to draw the space so things are squared up, and then you can count squares. You can either make those squares 2 foot or 1 foot, depending on the size of your shop. If it's a small one, then 1 foot squares is great. You can just basically count them. If it's 50 feet deep, then count 50 squares, and that's how long that line needs to be. And then as long as you keep this second page handy, or if you wanted to literally cut them out and move them around, these bikes are scaled to this size.
Oh, Brian, that's like genius level stuff. That's awesome.
Well, I don't know about that, but but it should be helpful. And even if you're just looking at this page and you're drawing the space on here, at least your little slash marks that you put on the page can be about the right size. And I give you a few examples of like a cash wrap and a little hangout area and a bathroom and a tiny, tiny office and things like that.
Mhm.
so that you just have some reference. Here's a service workstation like the ones we were just looking at.
It kind of makes me think like, okay, so let's say retailer in the protection program might want to open up a new store and they might want to put a shower in and they might want to put a break room in and they might want to put a bike wash in and they might want to put 8 gondolas. Well, we all want to put everything in, right? But at the end of the day,
Yep.
we not be able to. So we have to like pick and choose, right? Do you go
Yep.
through that? I'm sure you go through that conversation.
Yeah, and I always say don't let the wrong person design the space or the way you divide up your space, because if you let the people working in the back design the space, then your back room's going to be massive with showers and great storage and all that kind of stuff, and you'll have very little retail space. And the other way around, you might have someone that's the merchandising manager designing the space, and they might create something with too little of a back room because they're trying to maximize the front. So just be careful and, like, honestly, play around with things and see if everything can remotely fit.
This
With
bike store floor
You
plan,
can't flex, you can't change the size of a bike
right?
or how much space a helmet takes up. Like those are those are things that are finite and you just can't change them. So you might as well draw them to scale in your original plan. And I threw this in here just as an example of how the pieces and parts over to the right actually fall into that scaled grid.
That looks like a beautiful store. Wow. It's
How
fun.
exciting is that, right?
This is fun. So,
We
listeners,
did it. I want to point out that you did it. You actually incorporated. You don't owe anybody lunches.
I don't know anybody lunches. Actually, Brian, that was really fun. This should be like a new thing we do.
Yeah, wait until you see next month's words.
It's very interesting. It's very interesting. But what a great topic, because yes, fantastic, because we want to have a really good idea of the space we're going into, how it's going to work for us. I love that you brought this topic. And I also think that this could work for the person who has a store currently. You could relook at your space. I think we always try to jam too much in there, or things get old after a while, and it's good to freshen it up. So
Well, certainly if you're redoing the existing space, go back to the paper dolls, go back to the grid paper and use that to help you figure out where you're going to move things around. That's easy.
Brian, you work with people opening up new stores, but you also do a lot of remodels as well. So there's
Yeah.
like no bad time to call Brian,
No bad
like
time.
Friday at 8 p.m. or something.
Honestly, I get orders for one single little fixture to simply hold a frame on a wall. Or we get calls from people who are looking to re-merchandise a helmet display or trying to rethink. They're getting rid of their fitting area and they want to better utilize that space or something. It can start out really small.
And anyone can call you, like any questions, like just
All
write
the
to
time.
design@nbda.com and we'll put it right on the podcast. But if people just have a quick question or they want to maybe ask you about a bigger project.
If you want to ask any questions, you can always reach out to me. My email is brian@fixturelab.com. That's easy. But if you want to send it to Heather and I, send it to the design at email. And you can say, don't ever share this. Because even if you ask a great question and we can't use you as an example, it gives us some insight into what people are thinking about, and maybe we can build a future episode around something like that. So
It
it's all
has
good.
fun to do these episodes because Berkshire Bike and Board, their Connecticut location, when they first got it, that we did feature them on this podcast, and I think we talked about their ceiling. I think it was like a entire store kind
Yeah,
of.
we looked around at a few things in there. There were problems with the overall floor plan, the ceiling, the colors, the flooring, the organization of things was weird.
And now they have gone and done a complete reno, and they're so proud of their space. They are so proud of their space.
They should be. Stefan does a great job. Like, we've worked with him a number of times and
It's awesome.
really, really good.
That's awesome. And then so NBDA members, if you're listening and you are a member of the National Bicycle Dealers Association, Brian also is happy to offer a free consultation for like a remodel budget creation or whatever, right, Brian? Yeah.
Yeah, we'll give you a discount on fixtures. Depends on how big the fixture order is, but we'll give you a discount on fixtures as a MBDA member. We'll also give you a free consultation, even up to the budget meeting that we always suggest that we've talked about before, where I take you through line by line through the things that you need to budget for your store. We can do that in the early stages of the process. We want to help everybody that we can, and we certainly would love more business in the bike business. This is what we love to do. So
So cool.
call us.
So cool. Brian, I loved that you were at the summit. I love to see the retailers interacting with you. And I know that you're still helping some of those retailers you met there. Thanks for all you do. This was a great topic. So if listeners, if you're listening, make sure to check out the YouTube channel. It's not the same until you see it, because some of those images that Brian showed were pretty freaking awesome.
I don't honestly think if you're not looking at this while we're talking through that stuff,
you have no idea. It's like, okay. Challenge accepted, nauseating, canoodle, widdershins. Use those words today.
you did it.
I know. It was fun. That was fun. Brian, thank you.
You're awesome.
All right, listeners, have a great afternoon. Thank you for listening. If you're not up to speed with the NBDA, head over nbda.com, sign up for our newsletter, come to one of our events, and just be freaking cool. Thanks for listening. Now go be great.
MBDA on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you for listening to Bicycle Retail Radio. This podcast is designed specifically for the bicycle industry, dedicated to strengthening our retailers and cycling community. If it is your first episode, we urge you to take the time and listen to our past episodes.